Hi, how's it going? This is Resident of Colin for YouTube, Resident underslash of underslash Colin for BitChute, and I'm here to continue my read along reviews for John Philip Betancourt's continuing blog series, The Return of Dark Shadows. Series 13, Chapter 6, A Tale of Fire and Passion. The night of Elizabeth Collins Stoddard's birthday was not over. A mix of wild wind and concern still filled the air around the compound of Collinwood. The main mansion had fallen silent for now, but the ruffle of chaos still filled the halls of the old house where Noel had just burst through the door in search of the vampire Justin Patterson, whom she suspected of having been responsible for the disappearance of Evangeline, Caleb Collins' governess. As the door of Barnabas's beloved home swung open, Noel could see a dim light coming from underneath the door at the end of a dark back hallway just beyond the freshly painted foyer. This door led down to the basement of the old house where Justin lived. "What have you done?" Noel whispered to herself as she flung her coat around the staircase banister. She quickly made her way through the hall and carefully turned the knob that led to stone stairwell into the basement where she would slowly make her way down. Her nerves were on edge. What would she find when she finally entered the bowels of the old house? What would Justin, his dark spirit fully on display, be doing to this innocent governess? Innocent to Noel, who had no idea Evangeline was herself a powerful witch in disguise. As Noel carefully made her way into the basement, she could smell the aroma of rosewater and candle wax. She could feel the warmth of the room that was usually damp and cold and had so much history of darkness, but in this instant felt comforting and welcome. At the bottom of the stone stairwell she could see into the whole room. There, lying on a beautiful bed, was Evangeline, completely unconscious, and Justin was far in the corner, hiding by shadows from the archway of the entrance. "What have you done?" Noel asked as she cautiously entered the main room. She did not look at Justin, only in the direction of the beautiful sleeping woman. I sense her whole soul. She reminds me of India," Justin said from his shadowy corner. "What are you talking about? This isn't India. This is Caleb Collins' governess, Justin. What have you done to her?" Noel asked me, now facing him. "You won't understand, even if I explained it to you. She and I met. She and I have a connection. I can't figure out what it is, but I want to. I think I want to know her more," Justin replied. Noel stepped closer to Evangeline, whose body was still motionless. She could tell that the woman was not dead. Her face and skin still had color of a living person, and her breath raised her chest slowly, but there was breath proof of life. "Are you going to kill her?" Noel asked in a slow and cautious tone. "I wouldn't do that, not to her, not to someone who has India's energy," Justin said suddenly. "India's energy? What are you talking about? Listen to yourself. Justin, you have to gain control of yourself. You've become obsessed," Noel replied. "Had you kept your word, I would have been done with you by now. You're a disgrace to your coven," Justin snarled. "Nevertheless, I can feel India's life force." Noel, she must have somehow connected with India when she arrived here. The woman, she's like me. He paused. Justin, stop it. Stop it. She is not like you. She has nothing like you. She's just a nanny. Do you know what you've done? Caleb saw you, or he thinks he did. He saw what happened to Evangeline, and now the family's suspicious. You have to get this woman back to the house unharmed. You have to do this now, Noel exclaimed. From the shadowy corner Justin was sitting in, Noel couldn't see his reaction to her demand. She could feel him staring, however, a deep, cold stare that felt like she was standing in the middle of a glacier. He stood up and made his way out of the dark corner of the basement and into the light of the room. His eyes glistened as he had been crying. Noel looked over at him and could feel that something in him was sad, but the sadness was masked by a deep rage that he felt towards her. For she was the woman who promised him India, and she failed. She woke him from his grave in 1966 when he was hiding in Barnabas's coffin and promised him India. She never delivered. A betrayal. You would deny me happiness again. She isn't just a nanny. This woman is a sorceress. She showed me herself. She showed me that side of her, and I could feel energy within her heart that tells me that she had contact with India. And now you're trying again to take that away from me, Justin said as she stood closer to Noel. As she stood closer to Noel, that she felt comfortable with. Just take her back, you say. She's not what you think. You keep telling me this is just another one of your tricks to get what you want out of me without delivering what I need to stay alive. Well, I'm not doing it at this time, Noel. I believe this woman and I are destined to be together. I'm beginning to see that perhaps she was the one that I was meant to be with. Noel began to fear Justin was losing his mind. Perhaps all the years locked away in a secret since she found him were getting to him. Perhaps all these years feeding him the idea that she would use the weakness, magical powers that she too held inside to bring him India were now starting to catch up to her, and all of this madness and fear were climbing to a new height of his brain and destroying any kind of reality she could muster for him. Perhaps the world she built for him in hopes of using his strength and eternal life when the time was right to get back at the Collins family for their involvement in her brother's mysterious death was now falling apart, and now Evangeline was a new victim in this web of treachery. Justin, listen to me, okay? Just listen. We have an opportunity right now to set things right. I am very close to finally getting to the truth of what happened to Bo. I've been waiting for years to start this, and now the time is right. I have to do this the right way, the safest way. Nothing can come between the truth and myself. I'm doing this for Cameron. I'm doing this so that I can finally have peace and so that Bo can have peace. But this, Noel said, pointing to the sleeping Evangeline, this could destroy everything. All my work, all the time that I have been working in that house for the family. Do you understand? Justin thought for a second and realized that now he was in a way the one in control. He could finally see that everything Noel was plotting was contingent on what he could do for her, and what was a powerful spot to be in. If he wasn't in on what she was going to do, then perhaps she could not do it. It was now time for Noel to bring in some of her promises and stop using him. I don't trust you anymore, Noel. You promised me too much. You have brought me nothing. But I'm not an unreasonable man. I'll give you 2 days to come up with a new idea that will be advantageous for both of us. For you, you'll get to the truth of how and who killed your brother. And for me, I get the person I've been waiting for so many years, India or Evangeline, Justin said, posing a new proposition. Noelle didn't know what to say. She could only hope that he would return Evangeline unharmed. She took a second, looked at the sleeping witch, and turned back to Justin. Fine. In 2 days, I'll come up with something that will serve us both. And at the end, you'll get what you want. I will too, but this girl must be unharmed. Justin smiled and looked down at Evangeline. He knew that now India was gone. He knew now that there would be no way of bringing her back. Evangeline was now the focus of his affections, and she was lovely, she was beautiful, and he knew in his body and soul that she was like him, different, special, supernatural. Take her back, Noelle said again in a quiet tone. But just as she spoke, she heard the footsteps on the ceiling coming from upstairs. Someone was home. Startled, Noelle put her finger up to her lips to hush Justin and rushed up to the stone steps and back into the main chamber of the old house, where she found her nephew, Cameron Frame, and his boyfriend, Lucas Granger. You gotta watch that Lucas Granger. Hanging their coats up on the side closet near the front door. Cameron had left 2 days before after a continuous argument with his aunt Noelle about all the things she was keeping from him. His return home was a surprise. Honey, it's so good to see you. I've been worried about you, Noelle said, walking up to her nephew, hoping he'd accept her with open arms. Lucas, it's good to see you, she said, after receiving a cold reception from Justin. You too, Noelle, Lucas replied. I just came home to pick up a few things. I'm going to be staying with Lucas for a while, Cameron replied. Can we talk, please? Noelle said softly, hoping for a chance at redemption for all her secret keeping. Talk? Whatever you have to say, you can say it in front of Lucas. He knows everything, Cameron said bluntly, surprising Noelle. It's okay, I can go into another room if you need me to, Lucas said, hoping for some time alone to snoop around the old house. No, if she has something to say, she can say it what it is, Cameron said, his hurt burning in his words. Cam, I wish you'd allow me to at least explain things further to you. I wish you'd allow me to show you why I did what I did. Why I kept everything from you for so long. There was a reason. There's always been a reason. And I can't tell you how sorry I am for it all. I really am. But my whole motive was to finally get to the point where I could finally figure out what happened to your dad. The truth, Noelle explained, taking advantage of the opportunity. You should have been honest with me years ago. Years ago. I could have helped you figure out the truth, and now we're in this mess because I don't know what to believe or what to trust. You've always been my only family, Aunt Noelle. You've been the one person I look to the most, the person I could trust the most. And now, Cameron began before being interrupted. And now I don't know. I want to trust you. I want to believe you, but how can I? He answered. Can I say something? Lucas added. Noelle and Cameron both looked at him, giving him the green light to speak. Maybe now is the best time to align as one to finally get to the bottom of everything. You're both stronger together than apart, and now that the truth is finally out in the open, you can join and finally, once and for all, put this horrible side of your family's history to rest. I think that starting fresh with the truth was the best thing that could have happened. Cameron was confused. He knew that Lucas was on his side, but at the same time, he didn't feel like Noelle deserved to be left off the hook so quickly. I think that would be great too, Noel said. Well, of course you do. That would be just so easy for you to take things and make them all good again. When we both know that you literally had me live next door to my maternal family all this time, you kept me secret from them. Don't they deserve to know me? Half of who I am is in the other house, other than in my life, and didn't even know. It's selfish. It's beyond selfish. Actually, I mean, my God, my grandmother is your boss, Cameron pointed out. Noel took his berating like a woman at a firing squad. She knew she deserved it, but she also knew her motives for keeping the secrets to his maternal connection to the Collins family were warranted. So what does that mean, kid? Lucas asked Cameron. Does that mean you just want to throw in the towel with the woman who raised you because she felt that the woman who gave you up didn't deserve to know you yet? Again, Cameron wasn't sure why his boyfriend was taking Noel's side so quickly. It was a strange reaction, a reaction he didn't expect, and in reality a bit off-putting. But Lucas had his own ulterior motives for trying to get Cameron and Noel back in line. If they were close again, that would mean Lucas could get closer to the real Collins family and hopefully begin whatever paranormal investigations he had always wanted to. He was only steps away from the mansion. Noel and Cameron reconciling was the key to his scientific glory. What would it take for you two to understand my side of it? Noel wondered. I don't know. I guess proof, some kind of proof that the Collins family are as dangerous as you keep trying to convince me. So apparently dangerous that you kept me a secret, Cameron said with a sarcastic tone. Yes, proof. You want that too, and I think I can do that for you with your help. See, all these years that I've been working with Miss Stoddard, I've tried to find that proof and show it to you that when I finally did tell you who your mother was, you would understand why I kept the secret, because I truly believe that they had something to do with your dad's death in 1966. But I never had enough time while I was working to do the right thing of searching the house, but now you do know, and maybe you can help me. Maybe you can do the searching while I attend to Miss Stoddard, Noel said to Lucas, happy grin. Lucas felt like he was getting closer to his prey. He could feel it. Noel grabbed her nephew's hand. Honey, I did this all wrong. I should have been honest with you from the start, but I can't change that now. I want to, but I can't. But I hope we can move forward now together as a team and get to the bottom of everything. Now that you know, I feel like we can do this. We can finally find the truth of how the Collins family killed Bo and hid it from all of us as a team. A team of three? Lucas interjected. Cameron felt like he was being ganged up on. Noel only wanted to find the truth to everything that involved around Bo's death, and Lucas wanted something too. Cameron could tell there was something he wanted, but was unsure of what exactly it was. Odd seeing his boyfriend being so upfront and his aunt's side on his aunt's side. Lucas could taste Collinwood. He saw the mansion on his way up to the old house, and it was like a dream. All his studies, all his investigations and readings on the family history, he was literally one doorstep away. Cameron only had to agree to finally be involved to help Noel. A team of three, Noel repeated in a cautious whisper. Cameron wasn't sure what to do. Did he really want to do this? Was this really the way he wanted to get to know his mother's family, by infiltrating their home and pretending to be Noel's nephew and not Carolyn's son? It was just a lie upon lie, and now he was on the verge of agreeing to help in the scam. At what cost? The truth that his mother, Carolyn's family, was somehow directly responsible for his father's death. At this strange and long-winded excuse of Noel was real and not some bizarre and random conspiracy theory of a woman he loved slowly going mad. Was Cameron willing to find out and not only have the reality that his mother's family killed his father in cold blood? Well, Lucas said, nudging his boyfriend Cameron into a decision. Fine, fine, I'll help, but I'm only giving it 1 week, and if we don't find anything, that's it. It's over, and you'll have to quit, Cameron demanded. Quit? Noel asked. Quit, yes. You'll resign as Mrs. Stoddard's caretaker, and we'll leave this place forever. That's my part of the bargain. No more lying to anyone. Noel thought about it for a second, but she knew that now that she had more help, she would definitely find the truth, and what she did to Colin's family would be held accountable for all their sins, all that would come to pass before she'd ever be forced to resign. Deal, Noel said with a gleam in her eye while still holding Cameron's hand. She pulled him closer and hugged him tight. Her love, the boy she raised, the boy she adored, they were finally going to solve the mystery of Beau's death together, like they should have always done as a family. And Lucas, hungry for fame and fortune by discovering that the dead were among us, that the vow between the world of the living and those that had gone before us was a reality, and that the Collins family were somehow conduits to it all, would finally get what he wanted all along: riches, fame, notoriety. Lucas wanted would Lucas would use his boyfriend's connection to the Collins family for his own greedy advantage. As Lucas and Cameron went upstairs together, some of his sins, Noelle took a second to think about her new alliance. Now that she was left to alone, it was her best bet to finally once and for all getting to the truth she had been waiting to discover all these years about Beau's demise to her. Justin's decaying mental state and his kidnapping of Evangeline was now a liability. Her promise to him was empty, fake. It had to be destroyed before it was too late. Or he had to be, sorry. As the fog rolled over the land that comprised the cliffside of Widow's Hill, Carolyn walked into the drawing room where David was going over cannery paperwork. She looked at him and grinned. She was proud of him. He was last of their direct family that worked at the family business. The burden of the entire Collins enterprise was on his shoulders as she lived in London. She could sense his deep obligation to the job. She also felt guilty for leaving him all these years. David never complained. You know, your father would be very proud of you, Carolyn said. David looked up at his older cousin and grinned. Would he? I tend to think he'd just go off on tangents and tell me how much more I could do, you know, how much more I should do. Nothing was ever good enough, David said. David, he loved you, Carolyn replied. David took a deep breath and stacked the papers on the desk and placed them inside a file. He smiled and turned to his cousin, who he felt was avoiding the subject of Evangeline. Go on. You can tell me. I know you want to, David said. What do you mean? Tell you what? Carolyn wondered. Deep inside, you want to say, I told you so. You knew coming back here something crazy would happen. So go on, don't be shy, David joked. Listen, I can feel a certain way about being here. That's true. But I think Evangeline leaving is not connected to anything. Well, she paused. Anything like before. At least that's what I'm going to believe. I don't want to entertain any other idea. Carolyn said, her mind shifting between her impulse of fight or flight. The fear of ingrained her in deep, dark paranoia was many times exhausting. But there was also her uneasy feeling about David's wife, Kimberly, and her skittish nature, especially the cryptic nature of the phone call she overheard the night of the birthday party. I can tell you're uncomfortable, so go on, lay it on me. You're going to find her, okay? We are, David pressed. Oh, God, fine, Carolyn relented. I am worried. I don't want to know what any of this could mean. I mean, the girl probably had had enough of everything in this drifty house and abandoned her job. She's not the first governess to do it, Carolyn said. Vicky was the first, David said in a low voice, remembering his own governess trials and tribulations at Collinwood. Carolyn scoffed. And my mother. She's going on and on about him, Carolyn mentioned. Do you think you don't think? I don't even want to fathom that Barnabas, David began before Carolyn interrupted. I don't want to hear that name. Sorry, I don't want to hear his name. Don't say his name. Carolyn, listen to me. Evangeline is going to be found. She's going to be fine, and everything will get back to normal. Everything has been normal here. Whatever normal is, Aunt Elizabeth has a way of retreating to what she feels is the old ways. I promise, we're safe, David said confidentially. So confident that he, sorry, confidently. So confident that he believed it, even believed it. She does go on about the old days in her letters, Carolyn distressed. See, David said with a smile. Carolyn smiled back and took a deep breath. She patted David on the shoulder and teased him about his penmanship on his paperwork. The two were falling back into the old routines of friendly and silly teasing, so much they didn't even notice the eyes of a large painting above them. A painting of Joshua Collins were real. As the two cousins talked, the eyes shifted back to their painted versions. Just behind Joshua's cold, pale, painted face, with its removable eyes, stood Elizabeth. Her face stone cold, they didn't believe her, while she secretly spied on her favorite nephew and daughter. She could tell that they didn't believe her when she told them something wicked was afoot, and that there was the reason of Evangeline's suddenly ghostly vanishing. Goodness. Little did Elizabeth know Justin was the true culprit. Elizabeth adjusted the black shawl around her shoulders that perfectly framed her porcelain face, adorned with pearl droplets, earrings on her ears, and lifted a brow in disgust. She'd show them she wasn't crazy. Back in the depths of the old house, Evangeline was left powerless by the strength of Justin's hold over her. He knew this was the only way he could control her and see deep into her soul. Give me a second. Okay. Uh, so it's rehearsal. This is how he could feel the subtle link that lay within Evangeline's body to India's life force left behind when India was inside Evangeline before the witch sent her back to her own timeline. It was a it was like a plum of smoke floating above a chimney so potent of life he could smell it. It was an alluring feeling, an alluring pull. He was attracted to Evangeline, and Evangeline was burning into his soul. She was now all he could think about, and all that he wanted in the entire world. Justin sat back in the corner of the basement of the old house. His heart was pounding with the voice of Noel telling him to return Evangeline unharmed to the mansion on Widow's Hill. But he couldn't, not yet. As Evangeline lay there, her mind was in another place, locked away in a dream, like State, trapped like a bear in a trap, unwielding and filled with powers that were not working. She could hear what was happening around her, but she could not speak. She could sense that what was going on and how locked in a place she was. It was as if she were in a vegetable coma-like state, frozen her powers, paralyzed by Justin's overwhelming strength over her. In the fog of her subconscious, Evangeline was not alone. There, standing in the world of her mind, was Bethlehem, the powerful witch and mentor of her past from decades ago, who posed as a mother superior, Magdalena Patrice, the woman who raised Evangeline as the orphan Claudia. The woman who also knew Angelique Bouchard centuries ago on the island of Martinique. This is not how I raised you, Evangeline. Claudia Bethlehem's voice rang out. This weak, despicable woman laying here worthless. This is not you. This is not the daughter of Angelique I raised. Mother Bethlehem, Evangeline asked, searching the darkness for the face to a voice in the misty void in her mind. And suddenly, out of the mist, like a cloud, the mystical nun appeared. This is not how you were taught. Fight for yourself and for your legacy. The coven holds you on high and wishes to grant you all the powers of the universe to free yourself of this binding. But if you do not fight, we cannot grant you such powers. It's incumbent on you, my child. Prove yourself to your coven. Prove it to yourself. What do I do? His control is so strong over me, Evangeline answered. It's only strong because you're allowing it to be. Nothing is more powerful than the strength we have bestowed on you. The powers of all your ancestors and of your mothers flow through your veins. Evangeline, Claudia, open your eyes, open them and see your future in front of you, and take hold of it by the throat. Now, Bethlehem commanded. Bethlehem was in her own way a powerful, immortal witch queen who lived her life hidden away in the same covenant in Bangor. She had never died. She lived to keep this child, this golden daughter of the coven, safe and powerful. To Bethlehem, Evangeline was the future of all witches, yet still a novice in her eyes. Evangeline was unsure of what to do. She couldn't understand what she needed to do to thought Justin's hold over her. She attempted to open her eyes, but she couldn't. She couldn't move, not even a finger, not even a toe. How could she wake? How could she break this binding control this vampire had over her? This vampire called himself Leopold. He stared at her, obsessed, infatuated, in love. I I can't do it. He's too strong, Evangeline said again in her mind to Bethlehem. Suddenly, like a storm raging over mountains and sea, like a volcano erupting in a wave of fire and smoke, Bethlehem screamed. Her rage echoed a roar inside of Evangeline's ears that actually shook the stone walls of the basement. I command you to wake. Wake, Bethlehem screamed. Justin looked in a gaze at a sleeping witch, felt the electricity in his body and power suddenly fill his blood too. And as the witch Bethlehem's voice continued, echoed in her mind, Evangeline gasped for breath in the boughs of the old house. Like a drowned person coming back to life, she opened her eyes, breathing hard, her chest lifting up and down with every drink of air. And then she came face to face with the man holding her captive. Justin stood up and quickly took his place in front of Evangeline, who was also ready on her feet. He smirked at her. He could feel her strength. It was alluring to him. Her eyes were seething with anger. She was fuming. All she wanted to do was kill this man in front of her for what he had done, taking her from Caleb, locking her mind and trapping her in the old house, where no one would find her. As she lifted her hand, ready to snap the vampire into the dustpan with all the others she had to kill, the years to keep her survival. But she noticed that something was stopping her. It was as if a wall was in front of her, and she could not see through it. It was something she had never felt. She could not bring herself to destroy him as she knew she could with just a flick of her wrist. She could kill him, but something was holding her back. Something that linked them, something connected them or brought them together. It was something in their blood, something in their hearts. She couldn't do it. She couldn't kill him. In a breathy voice she asked, "What do you want from me?" I don't know. I am drawn to you from the moment we met. I felt that you were like me. You and I are the same of the same cloth, of the same everything, Justin said as he stepped closer and closer. Can't you see it? He added, reaching for her. Don't you dare come any closer, Evangeline said, her voice screeching him to a halt. I don't want to hurt you. I don't. I need to understand what I am, and something tells me you can help me. I've been waiting to find someone for so long that understands what I am, and I can tell that you're it. Tell me, am I wrong? Justin asked, as his heart beating so hard he could hear it in his ears. This was love that came to him, that transferred from India to Evangeline. It was otherworldly. He could not understand it. He could not make sense of it, and in a way, this was what made him give Evangeline a fake name, the name of Leopold. Although he could tell he was falling for her, and that she could be what he was looking for to save him from himself, he still lived in fear. She would only know him by by this name until he could feel safe, until he knew she could not kill him. He still needed to keep his real self hidden. Justin Patterson should have been an old man in 1990, and he was a young and handsome frozen in his 1966 face. The truth was always a world of lies, even to a woman he had so suddenly fallen in love with. Their destinies were interlinked, and this was a truth neither of them could deny. In reality, only Evangeline could understand. and there was no point to hide who he was. There was no point to pretend and live through a veil of mistruths and lies. But it was almost like he had no choice. He walked up to her, the same witch that almost killed him, the same witch that he kidnapped and trapped. She in turn stared him back deep in the eyes. She was unafraid. She was unflinching. He walked up to her, unflinching, walked up to her and saw her aura that was glowing like a raging fire. They were connected. Neither of them could or would deny this. He stood in front of her, a woman to a man, a vampire to a witch. Their pulses racing, the blood overflowing with the mysterious and raging hate and passion and love and lust, like a volcano spewing lava from the depths of the core of the earth, hot magma pouring over onto them both. He reached over, pulled her close, and kissed her on the lips. It was like an explosion so fierce neither of them knew what was happening. It happened so fast, their connection, their immense power meant to be a connection. She then slapped him across the face. He turned back to her and she reached for him and kissed him again. More magma, more fire, more passion. Fire from a witch and a vampire, none of it supernatural. All of it natural and carnal. Late that night, Kimberly snuck out of the mansion and drove down to the docks. The fog covered every inch of her. She could feel the mist all over her skin, wet and sticky. She caressed the stomach, full and round with the baby inside, and waited as the car coming down in the distance finally made it to the docks to meet her. It was the baby's father, Victor Reed. He got out of the car but left the headlights on, glowing over the sea below the wooden dock. The water reflected back up at them like flashes of lights for a lighthouse or glass. Victor smiled at her and kissed her on the lips. He could taste the salty, moist air from the sea on them. She smirked and kissed him again. Counselor Devon is happy you're finally on board with this plan, Victor said as the water splashed wildly up against the docks. I promised that I would complete the task, and I'm going to do this for our child, for the future, Kimberly said as the lighthouse from the harbor swung its glass shine across her beautiful blue eyes. And have you decided on the fate of your first son? Victor said, his cold question staring Kimberly's heart. She wasn't sure how to answer the counselor of the Organization of the True-Hearted. Wanted every last Collins dead. This meant Caleb, Kimberly's son, with David, too. She didn't want to kill the boy. The other family members would be easy, but the boy, her own flesh and blood, she wasn't sure. She didn't know what to do. How could she kill her own? But the brainwashing was more powerful than her own mind. Kimberly took a deep breath in of the sea air and nodded her head in agreement. Very good, Victor Coley said as he kissed the mother of his unborn child. He then reached down and pulled up a briefcase from the ground and placed it on the hood of his car. He snapped the locks and opened to reveal 6 vials of serum encased in foam, and then reached for Kimberly's hand and pulled her close. These are for you. Devlin sent these to me to use on David, Carolyn, Caleb, and Elizabeth. And if any other Collins shows their vile, monstrous, devilish face at the grounds of that mansion, you are to inject them with this serum as well. This will be their undoing. Do you understand the job? Victor asked. Kimberly, who was studying her own medical license, knew her way around a syringe. I understand, Kimberly said as she grabbed the briefcase, closed it, and kissed Victor one last time. She knew her job. She was ready to complete it. No, Collins was safe. Alright, guys, that's the read along. Oh, goodness. I gotta get more awake. I like the fact that you have now Noel, Cameron, and Lucas Granger who are going to investigate Poe's death. I'm wondering if this is where David, if this is one of the, David's commitment happens sort of because of this. But again, because David goes to Wincliffe and everyone knows he goes missing, maybe David goes out of his mind. I don't know. We'll see. But it's crazy to think that you have all these characters and a lot's going to happen, because the one thing I'm most curious about though is what is Evangeline and Justin going to do? Not so much what Victor's going to do. We know what Victor's planned. We know what Kimberly's planned. But what are Evangeline and Justin going to do? Because they don't know about Victor. And are they going to learn about him? Again, Evangeline's been wanting to destroy Barnabas, but there's no Barnabas there, so we'll see. Really great scene setting. The characters are just intriguing. Claudia is a very interesting character. She's been through a lot of shit, and so is Justin. I love the interaction. My favorite interaction from the chapter was David and Carolyn. I think it was so good. There was so much storytelling just between them two alone, let alone this whole thing. So the link will be in the description box, guys. Hope you enjoyed the read along review. I'll see you.